The message arrived at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. Just 7 words. We need to talk about the will. I stared at my phone screen in the darkness of my apartment, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sender? My brother, Marcus. The same brother who hadn't returned my calls in 3 months. The same brother who'd convinced our entire family I was the problem. But here's the worst part. It wasn't the text that would make them regret everything. It was what I'd reply with. Because for 18 months, I'd been quietly collecting receipts, and I had 247 of them. Let me back up to where this really started. 2 years ago, our grandmother, Nana Rose, passed away at 87. She left behind a modest estate, her paid-off house in Portland, about $180,000 in savings, and a collection of vintage jewelry she'd promised me since I was 12 years old. I'm Eleanor, by the way, the youngest of 4 siblings, the sensitive one, the one who, according to family legend, always overreacted to everything. The day after the funeral, we all gathered at Marcus's house. Him, our sister Vanessa, our brother James, and me. Marcus, the oldest at 42, had appointed himself the unofficial executor, even though Nana's will named all of us equally. "So I've been going through Nana's finances," Marcus said, spreading papers across his dining room table. His wife Christine stood behind him like a sentry. "And honestly, it's a mess. We need to make some decisions." Red flag number 1, he'd been going through Nana's finances alone before the will was even read. "The house needs work before we can sell it," Vanessa chimed in, not looking up from her phone. "New roof, foundation issues. We're probably looking at $50,000 in repairs." "Where are you getting those numbers?" I asked. Marcus slid a single sheet of paper toward me, an estimate from Thompson & Sons Contracting. No letterhead, no license number, just typed figures. "A friend of Christine's family," he said smoothly. "They'll give us a good deal." Red flag number 2. "And the jewelry?" I asked carefully. "Nana always said—" "We should sell it," James interrupted. "Split it 4 ways, fair and square." The room suddenly felt smaller. "But Nana specifically told me—" "Eleanor," Marcus's voice had that edge I'd learned to recognize over the years, the one that said, "Here we go again." "We're all grieving. We all have memories with Nana. You can't just claim things because you feel like she wanted you to have them." My throat tightened. "I'm not claiming anything. I'm telling you what she explicitly—" "See, this is what I was worried about," Vanessa said, finally looking up. "Eleanor making this all about her feelings instead of being practical." And just like that, I was 12 years old again, being told I was too emotional when I cried at my birthday party because they'd given my cake to the neighbors' kids. I left that meeting with nothing resolved and a text from Marcus an hour later. "Try to think about what's fair for everyone, not just what you want." For 3 months, I tried to think about what's fair. I agreed to the contractor Marcus chose, even though I'd found 3 other estimates averaging $30,000 less. I agreed to let Marcus handle all the paperwork, even though I'd offered to help coordinate. I agreed to monthly family meetings, where every suggestion I made was met with sighs and eye rolls. Then came the meeting where everything changed. "So we've sold the jewelry," Marcus announced casually, like he was discussing the weather. My stomach dropped. "What?" "To an estate buyer. Got $15,000 for the whole collection. That's $3,750 each." The room tilted. You didn't even tell me you were selling it. We didn't vote. You just—" "We did vote," Vanessa said. "The 3 of us talked about it last week. Majority rules." "You talked about it without me?" "You've been so difficult about everything," Christine said. Christine, who wasn't even technically family, who had no stake in any of this. "We thought it would be easier to just handle it." I looked at James, the brother who used to build forts with me, who'd taught me to ride a bike. He wouldn't meet my eyes. That night, I called my best friend Sophia, my hands still shaking. "They're gaslighting you," she said flatly. "Classic financial abuse. You need to document everything." "They're my family." "Eleanor, document everything." So I did. I started with Nana's original will. I'd never actually seen it. Marcus had handled the reading with the lawyer to save everyone time. It took me 2 weeks and 4 phone calls to get a copy from the estate attorney. When I finally held it in my hands, my heart stopped. Section 4, paragraph B. My jewellery collection, particularly the ruby necklace and matching earrings, are to be given to my granddaughter, Elena Rodriguez, as promised. It was in writing. I sat in my car outside the law office and cried for 20 minutes. Then I started digging deeper. The house repairs? I drove to Portland and walked the property. The roof was new. Nana had replaced it 8 months before she died. The foundation was fine. I paid for an independent inspection out of my own pocket. Cost $400. Findings? Minor settling consistent with a 70-year-old home. No structural concerns. Thompson & Sons contracting? Didn't exist. The business license number on the estimate was fake. I called the state licensing board. The estate buyer who purchased the jewellery? I tracked down the shop. They had no record of any transaction matching the dates or description. But when I showed the owner a photo of Nana's ruby necklace, the one she'd worn in every holiday photo, his face changed. "Oh, that piece. Yeah, a guy came in trying to sell it about 6 weeks ago. Wanted $20,000. I offered $18,000. He said he'd think about it and never came back." "Can you describe him?" "Mid-40s, sandy hair, expensive watch. Had his wife with him, blonde, real put together." I showed him a photo from last Christmas. "Yeah, that's them." Marcus and Christine had tried to sell the jewellery privately for $18,000 and told the family they'd gotten $15,000 from an estate sale. The rabbit hole went deeper. I requested all financial records from the estate account Marcus had opened. As a beneficiary, I had legal right to them. The lawyer dragged his feet for 6 weeks. Turns out he was Marcus's college roommate, but eventually complied. 63 pages of bank statements revealed $8,200 to estate management fees to Marcus himself, $12,000 to Thompson & Sons, the fake contractor, $4,500 to legal consultation, more than the actual probate lawyer charged, $2,100 to property maintenance. The house had been empty. In total, Marcus had funneled $26,800 to himself and Christine before a single asset was distributed. I made copies of everything. I organized it into a binder with tabs and timestamps. I highlighted every discrepancy. I attached photos, receipts, the independent home inspection, the jewellery store owner's sworn statement. The binder was 89 pages long. I waited for the next family meeting, 4 months after that first gathering at Marcus's house. This time, I brought my documentation and a family law attorney named Patricia Chen, who charged me $500 to sit silently in the corner and observe. Marcus's face went white when we walked in. "What is this?" "This is me thinking about what's fair for everyone," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I placed the binder on the table with a solid thump. "Like you asked." For the next hour, I went through it page by page. The forged contractor estimate, the missing jewellery clause in the will, the fake estate sale. The $26,800 in fraudulent fees. Vanessa's face cycled through denial, shock, and fury, not at Marcus, but at me. You hired a lawyer? Against your own family? You stole from your own family, I said quietly. I'm just showing you the evidence. James finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Marcus, tell me this isn't true. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is insane. Elena, you've always been paranoid, but this… Is this your signature? I slid a bank statement across the table. $8,200 to yourself for estate management. What exactly did you manage? I've spent hours dealing with this estate. You spent hours embezzling. There's a difference. Christine grabbed her purse. We don't have to listen to this. Actually, you do. Patricia Chen finally spoke from the corner, her voice calm and professional. Because Ms. Rodriguez is filing a formal complaint with the probate court tomorrow morning. You'll want to hear what she has to say now, while it's still a family conversation and not a deposition. The room went silent except for the ticking of Marcus's expensive wall clock, the one he'd bought last month with his bonus from work, or what I now suspected was Nana's money. Vanessa was scrolling through the binder, her hands trembling. The jewelry clause. It's really in the will. I slid her a copy, highlighted, notarized. She looked up at Marcus. You told us there was nothing specific. You said Elena was just being emotional about a vague promise. I didn't think. Marcus's usually smooth voice cracked. The jewelry was worth more than the rest of you would get. I was trying to make it fair. By lying? James's voice rose. By stealing? I wasn't stealing. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. I did all the work. I dealt with the lawyers, the house, the bills, everything. You all just showed up expecting your cut while I handled the hard part. So yes, I took a management fee. Yes, I made some executive decisions. Someone had to. Executive decisions like fraud? I asked. Like forgery? That contractor estimate wasn't forged. Thompson & Sons doesn't exist, Marcus. I have the state records. You want Miss Chen to show them to you? His face flushed deep red. Christine was already halfway to the door. If you walk out, Patricia said mildly, we proceed with the full legal complaint tomorrow. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty and theft. The DA might get interested in the forgery aspect too. They froze. The next 3 weeks were brutal. Marcus and Christine hired a lawyer. A real one this time. The probate court froze all estate accounts pending investigation. But here's where it got worse. My family chose sides, and I lost the vote. Vanessa called me 2 days after the confrontation. You didn't have to destroy him, Elena. He made some mistakes, but bringing lawyers into it, making this public, he committed fraud. He's our brother. And I'm your sister. Why doesn't that matter? The line went quiet for a long moment. You've always been the sensitive one, always making everything into a drama. Maybe if you'd just talked to Marcus instead of going nuclear. I hung up. James was worse. He sent a long text. Mum would be ashamed of you for tearing this family apart. Over money, over things. Nana would be heartbroken. The gaslighting had gone nuclear. Suddenly, I wasn't the victim of theft. I was the villain destroying family harmony over being petty. My phone lit up with messages from aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. All of them had heard Marcus's version. Poor Marcus, who'd worked so hard on the estate, now being attacked by his unstable sister, who'd hired lawyers and was making wild accusations because she didn't get some jewelry she wanted. None of them had seen the binder. I stopped sleeping. I started having panic attacks in my car. I questioned everything. Was I overreacting? Was this really about justice, or was I just being vindictive? Had I destroyed my family over… Then my phone buzzed at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. Marcus, we need to talk about the will. I stared at those 7 words, my finger hovering over the screen. Sophia's voice in my head, don't engage. Let the lawyers handle it. But I was so tired of being gaslit, so tired of being told I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. I typed my response. 7 words that had been building for 18 months, and I attached all 89 pages. My reply was simple. Already talked to the court, see attached. Then I forwarded him the probate court's preliminary findings. The investigation I'd triggered had uncovered more than even I knew. Turns out Marcus had been managing Nana's finances for 2 years before she died, since she'd had a small stroke and gave him power of attorney. The court forensic accountant found $43,000 in unauthorized withdrawals from her savings, her medication costs being paid from her account while she was on his health insurance. He'd pocketed the reimbursements. Her social security checks being deposited into an account only he controlled. 15 instances of him using her credit cards for household expenses at luxury stores. In total, $67,500 stolen from an elderly woman while she was alive, plus the $26,800 after her death. Grand total, $94,300 from our grandmother. While she was alive and trusting him to help her, the report was 24 pages long. It used words like elder financial abuse and fiduciary misconduct. I sent it to the family group chat at 11:46 p.m. Then I sent the jewelry store owner's statement, then the fake contractor evidence, then the will with Nana's jewelry clause highlighted. Then I wrote, "This is what you defended. This is who you chose to believe over me. I've been called dramatic, sensitive, petty, and vindictive for 6 months because I told the truth. I hope it was worth it." And I left the group chat. My phone exploded. Vanessa called 14 times. James sent a novel-length apology text at 2 a.m. My Aunt Rosa called crying, saying she'd had no idea, that Marcus had told them I was exaggerating. Marcus sent nothing, but Christine did. At 6:47 a.m. "You just destroyed our lives. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. The probate court's ruling came down 8 weeks later. Marcus was removed as executor. He was ordered to repay $94,300 plus interest, $102,187 total. The estate was to be redistributed according to the actual will, with me receiving Nana's jewelry collection, which they were ordered to recover or pay fair market value of $24,000. The house sold for $340,000 after actual repairs, which cost $8,200, not $50,000. After legitimate expenses and legal fees, the estate was worth $501,000. Split 4 ways, $125,250 each. Minus what Marcus owed, he'd be paying the family back for years. But here's the thing about families and money. Even when you're proven right, you still lose. James apologized, genuinely. "We have coffee once a month now. It's awkward, but we're trying." Vanessa sent a card that said, "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," with no return address. We haven't spoken since. Marcus and Christine moved to Arizona. Last I heard, they filed for bankruptcy. Christine's family won't speak to them either. Turns out the contractor friend story had poisoned that well too. My extended family fractured down the middle. Half apologized, half quietly unfriended me on social media and stopped showing up to reunions. The jewelry? They never recovered it. Marcus claimed he'd sold it before I filed the complaint, but couldn't produce receipts or a buyer. The court valued it conservatively at $24,000. I took the money. It's not about the jewelry anymore, if it ever was. It's about being told you're crazy when you're seeing clearly. It's about being gaslit by the people who should protect you. 6 months after the ruling, I was cleaning out my closet and found a shoebox I didn't recognize. Inside, every birthday card Nana had ever sent me. 32 years worth. The one from my 12th birthday, the year she first promised me the jewelry, said this in her shaky handwriting. Elena, my darling girl, you have your grandmother's heart, sensitive, strong, and true. Don't let anyone tell you that feeling deeply is a weakness. It's your superpower. One day when I'm gone, I want you to have my ruby necklace. Not because it's valuable, though it is, but because you're the only one who asked me about the stories behind each piece. You see people, mijita. You see their hearts. Don't ever lose that, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Te amo siempre, Nana Rose. I sat on my closet floor and cried until my ribs ached. She knew I'd be the one who'd have to fight for it. She knew they'd call me too sensitive. And she told me, 20 years before it mattered, that it was my strength. That one text, those 89 pages I sent at 11:46 p.m., didn't just make my family regret everything. It made me realize that standing up for truth, even when everyone tells you you're wrong, even when it costs you relationships, even when you're shaking and scared and second-guessing everything. That's not being too sensitive. That's being strong enough to feel everything and still stand firm. Marcus stole money, but what my family regrets, really regrets, is stealing something they can never pay back. My trust. And here's what I learned. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When they gaslight you, document everything. When they choose a lie over your truth, you don't owe them your silence. That text didn't destroy my family. It revealed what was already broken. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop protecting people from the consequences of their own actions, even when they're family, especially when they're family. The ruby necklace money sits in an investment account. I've never touched it. Sometimes I think I'll donate it to an elder abuse prevention charity in Nana's name. Sometimes I think I'll save it for my own future kids, along with her cards and her stories. But mostly I think about that text. 7 words that changed everything. And I don't regret a single one.